Hello and welcome back. I am the Board Game Fanatic, and I'm here to talk to you about numerous board games in the industry that have really appealed to me and really caught my interest and really stand out. Today's going to be a bit of a different one, whereas we're going to be talking about a game that I've not played to the extreme yet. I've not experienced everything that it has within it. This is simply going to be part of a new series where I talk about the games where I've just played it maybe once or twice, and these will be my initial first impressions, whether positive or negative. I'll share all the good and bad things about the game that I've essentially garnered from those initial play sessions. Today we're going to be looking at specifically Primal: The Awakening. Now this is a Kickstarter, a large board game Kickstarter that I backed numerous years ago, and I was very excited to get my hands on. Inside is a host of huge monster miniatures. You have huge dragon-like creatures, huge crab-like monsters. You have a whole plethora, a whole host of monsters within this box, and this is a huge box, to put it simply, or very bluntly. And you're going to be fighting against these monsters with a team of heroes armed with either sword, bow, hammer, and you're going to be essentially trying to beat them in a single fight. Yeah. So think along the lines of the original kind of video games, where you play through the level and you will get to a boss encounter at the end. Primal: The Awakening is that section of the video game, just skipping all of the prelude, all of the build-up. You are going straight for the boss. This is a boss fight, and you need to survive, and it's not going to be easy. And it does a very good job of emulating that. Now, it's not alone. This is a crowded genre within the board game space now. There's numerous titles that have come across in the last few years within this space, and it started to expand this particular niche of the hobby. So some examples might be Dark Souls was one of the first ones I can think of. I'm not sure if you fought minions before, but Dark Souls did have a lot of huge monsters and bosses for you to fight, pretty much like the video game. There's also Monster Hunter, made after the IP, the video game itself. There's Oathsworn, which is a huge narrative game where you explore a fantasy world and you fight huge bosses. So, and it's constantly expanding. There's new ones coming out all the time. So this little niche of an area within the board game space is becoming bigger and bigger every year, and it's definitely a popular little space. So Primal: The Awakening is up against a lot of competition here. And the question is, what does it do different? How does it stand out? And is it enjoyable to play? So today I'm going to give you essentially my first impressions of the game, go into detail and talk about positives and negatives. Obviously I plan to play the game a lot more, so you'll get a proper review in due course, but this is just my initial impressions, and it is now, I believe, a game that you can buy at retail. Initially as a Kickstarter crowdfunding game, it was only exclusive to those who supported the campaign, myself included, but now I believe they've got to the stage where it is available at retail. So if you're interested in the type of game, or this video gets your attention, then it's probably worth checking out. So I'm going to kind of follow a short structure. I'll go into detail about my feedback about the title, and I hope you enjoy the video. So let's get into it. Right, so let's get into the introduction about the game. So Primal: The Awakening is obviously a boss battling monster board game where up to 4 players can essentially take on a large humongous monster in a battle for survival. You can play potentially solo play. I have done this, both cases so far, in the 2 games I've played, or you can play up to 4 players. I'm not sure if you can expand upon that with the other boxes. I only got one of the expansion boxes, but 4 players in the core box, so you can have 4 people playing this game. The monster within this game operates through reactions to what kind of actions you do. So nobody controls the monster. The monster is automated. You are battling against it, and what it does depends on what things you do during your turns. So it's a very intuitive and interesting system where the monster is not following a preset structure every turn. he will react to what you do, which is an element I find very interesting. The heroes also, throughout essentially a campaign, because this game does offer the campaign play, you don't necessarily just have to play a monster fight, but throughout the campaign play you are able to upgrade gear, make yourself stronger, and build up, make yourself more powerful to take on larger monsters, and it offers quite a large experience there. Now for me, I've only played the prologue, the intro mission, and I played it twice now. Once solo, playing 2 characters, and the second time with 4 characters solo. And so far the game seems really reasonably easy to follow. There's a lot to it though, it must be said. Primal the Awakening is a large game. As I said before, there is a humongous amount of miniatures in this box, and a humongous amount of content, cards, tokens, the lot. Alright. So, let's begin by talking in detail about my thoughts from my initial sessions. So, right off the bat, do you feel like you're battling a monster in this game? Yes. The boss is not easy to take down. You will be playing cards and using strategy and coordinating with your fellow players at the table, especially if you're not playing solo. You will be trying to maximize the amount of damage you do to the monster, and the monster is not easy to overcome, especially in the prologue. So it's a challenging game which rewards strategy, teamwork, thinking, and tactical decisions that allow you to play the right cards at the right times, or even avoid damage and avoid being attacked, or even dodge attacks. So there's a lot of depth to this game. As for complexity, I wouldn't say it's the easiest game to learn. If you're looking at board games that wanting to jump into something easy, this is not a starting point in my opinion. It's not on the higher end of difficulty or weight. I think it's reasonably easy to follow, but for a newbie to the hobby I wouldn't advise it, because there's although the turn structure itself is essentially very simple to follow, very structured, very easy to follow. It's a larger rulebook, and there's a lot to digest from your initial read of the rulebook. But generally the game itself, the structure of it, the ease of playing it, once you get over the hurdle of reading the rulebook, it's not a difficult game to get out, not a difficult game to play, and there is a rewarding amount of tactical decisions and strategy to it. It doesn't feel like you're just playing a card and that's the end of your turn. You are deciding which card to play at the right time. You are putting combos together. You are positioning yourself. You are using terrain to your advantage. There's a lot to go on here, and you're thinking about what the monster's going to do. How is he going to react? If you play this card, is that going to trigger his attack? So there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of strategy, a lot of depth, and a lot of really good mechanics at play here. Right, so we'll dive into the positives of the game. From my first few sessions, as I said before, the turn structure is incredibly straightforward. Although the rulebook is something we'll cover in a bit for you to a hurdle to get over, the actual turn structure of the game itself is incredibly simple and easy to follow. There is a crib card in the box, and it's so easy to follow. It literally lays out the entire turn structure step by step, and once you've done it a couple of times you don't even need to refer to the book. Yeah, once you've got into that routine, done a few turns, you're off. You know exactly what you're doing, and you can get to playing without returning to the book. Now, yes, the rule book can be difficult, but it does explain everything in a very good, sensible way. There wasn't many questions left over by the end of reading it, which is something to note, especially of a game this size, that it does answer most things. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't any questions or things that cropped up while I was playing, but for the most part it was easy to understand. And additionally, it was easy for the most part to find everything I needed. There was a handy index at the back, and everything was laid out in a nice structured way. So when I did come to an impasse, finding the rules and clarifying things was relatively straightforward. What else did I like? Obviously, if you are a miniature person, you are going to love these miniatures. Now, they're not like the greatest of all miniatures ever, no, but they are very good, very high quality miniatures of various monsters. Some obviously have gathered inspiration from wherever, dragons, or maybe Godzilla, So there's going to be some that are going to remind you of certain things, but the monster miniatures are fantastic. The hero miniatures, although small, are just as detailed as you can see from the picture. They're very nice sculpts, and there's a lot of intricate detailing, especially on the armour. So, although, let's be honest, the monsters are the centerpieces, the monsters are there to draw your attention, to catch your eyes, and they do look phenomenal. The hero miniatures still look quite good unto themselves, as you can see from the picture. And then, of course, the quality of the product isn't just limited to the miniatures themselves, which are obviously a big part of it, but your cardstock quality is very nice, the tokens are very nice quality, the board is very nice, the whole production throughout is fantastic. When it comes to your action cards and reading and understanding the effects and text abilities, it's very easy to follow. Every character of the 4 heroes has their own crib card, which not only has an icon reference, which is very easy to follow. On the back of the card, it also has a handy keyword reference, which references all the keywords you might find on the cards that are within your deck. This is the first time I've ever seen this in a game, and it's fantastic to have our own little crib card which tells you, especially when you come to card games and things like that, to have your own card that tells you all the keywords right then and there. Fantastic. I can't wait to play this 4-player, to give everybody their own card and then to not ask me, what does this do? I can just say, look at your reference card, it tells you. It's fantastic, a great design feature and something that I think needs applauding. Right, so we're on to the art. The artwork of all the monsters, all of the heroes, and even the cover itself are all incredibly striking and incredibly well done pieces that really add to the flavour of the game, to really add to the power of the game, the power of the monsters. Yeah, it has a great aura around it. I think they've done a phenomenal job, really, from the art side. So we're on to the gameplay next. The gameplay was fun. It was challenging. There were times and moments where I thought, if I do this, it's going to hurt my team. It's going to be hard. Even in the prologue mission, which is very good. I expect it to continue that pace as I go through and play against different monsters. But it was a rewarding experience. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed battling against a monster. And I really felt that sense of accomplishment as it was losing its health and we were approaching the end of its life. And during that time, as you fight the monster and it slowly passes thresholds and becomes stronger, you did feel like it was getting more powerful and getting more dangerous, and the pressure was building on you to beat it. So do I think it's replayable as well? That's another factor, and the answer is yes. I could play the prologue scenario over and over again with family and friends. Obviously it will get stale eventually, but that's why you've got a whole box full of encounters and different monsters. But just the prologue scenario itself offers enough challenge and enough gameplay experience that you could just get it out occasionally and play a few times. But if I'm even thinking of playing it again, it means it's left a very good impression. So that's a positive. The game deserves recognition for that. It makes me want to play again. Right, so we're on to the negatives now, and there are a couple, and you need to be critical of these things when you've got games in front of you. And Primal has a couple of glaring ones. The first of all is the size of the box itself. Now let's be honest, this is a humongous box. Do not be deceived. The box is enormous. I'm not sure if the retail one is smaller or if they have designed a smaller retail one, but the core box I got from the Kickstarter campaign is immense. It takes up a lot of space. You can't store it in any kind of Kallax or on a general shelf as far as I'm concerned. It's here, especially here, I've stacked it on top of a cupboard, so it's at the very top. It's obviously a nice display piece, but there's no way this is going on a standard shelf, especially if you're into Kallax shelves. So you must understand that this is a huge box and it's going to take up a lot of space. Next critical that I have, obviously these are just first impressions, my opinions might change over time, but this one is more about the gameplay itself. Now, I played Monster Hunter from Steam Forge Games, and the monster moves around the board and changes its plan of attack and does different things. Primal the Awakening was focused on a completely different style, where the monster simply sits in its place. Obviously, during the battle itself, it's moving around and you're moving around it, but in this game, the monster simply stands in the middle, and your heroes maneuver around the monster, representing the battle moving around and you're moving into position around the monster. So the physical monster piece isn't going anywhere except turning on the spot. Now, it does feel a bit underwhelming at times when you've got a huge monster and it doesn't do anything physical on the board. It just simply turns. Now, I'm not saying this is a huge negative, this is part of the design itself, and I don't think they should change it. I think it's a very intuitive, very interesting and a very fresh take on it, but it does feel like sometimes he's just spinning on the spot, which, although it's not great, it's not the most horrendous thing. But whereas, for example, Monster Hunter, the monster is physically moving around the board, it's pushing into squares, it's moving away from you. There's a bit more of a reaction from the monster's piece on the board than there is in Primal. But is that enough to turn me off the game? Absolutely no. Right, so now we're on to the rulebook. The rulebook, it must be said that I do not recommend, as someone who's new to the hobby, that they dive into Primal. Primal the Awakening has a lot going on in this game. It is a large rulebook. Although it's not difficult to master, if you approach this as your first ever board game, this may put you off of playing board games. I'm sorry to say, it's a big rule book, there's a lot to wrap your head around, and if you're new to games, this is not a starting point, this is not an entry point. I would recommend you play other games and build up to this. Absolutely, I'm not saying don't play this game. It's, so far, for me, it's fantastic, and it was worth every penny. But, it's not an entry level game. Yeah, you're going to have to learn the rules, you're going to have to master the turn structure, and then you're obviously going to have to teach everybody it. So there's a lot to learn here. The rulebook itself, although it's structured in a nice format, nice and easy, it doesn't answer absolutely everything, as I said earlier on. It will potentially lead to you having a couple of questions that you might need to search for an answer for. Now, I didn't find it difficult to find these answers, but as I said before, it doesn't answer everything. It may leave you with the odd question here and there. So don't expect it to be, these are the rules, you know exactly what you're doing. There might be the odd thing you need to check on. Right, so in conclusion, Primal the Awakening is a very good game. Obviously, it has its flaws, very minor ones, such as the monster doesn't really move on the board, and there is some rules where you might need to jump back and read the rulebook to find the answer to your little question. It's not all going to be smooth sailing right from the start. You're going to need to learn the rules, play a couple of sessions before you master everything 100%. But regardless of the negatives, this game has left a very good positive impression from my initial 2 plays of it. I can't wait to get it to the table with the rest of the family, so I'm going to have to see how my experience changes when I've got multiple people at the table. But generally, Primal the Awakening, very good initial impressions of the game, and I'm looking forward to playing it over and over again, trying out all the different monsters and starting a campaign and experiencing that part of the game, because obviously a lot of the equipment and the upgrades that you can get, they're locked into the campaign part. You've got to play a series of games to unlock better equipment and get stronger, and then take on those stronger monsters. So this is just my initial experience of the prologue, and if it's left such a positive experience just from the prologue itself, I can't wait to dive into the rest of the game. So if you're into monster hunting, monster battling, boss fights, this could be a game that's worth investigating yourself. If any of it sounded interesting, then you should probably have a look, but just be warned, it is a pricier game, it's a bigger game, you've got to store it, and obviously you probably need to have the time for it, especially when it's going to be a campaign game as well. Generally, Primal the Awakening, very solid first impressions. I will plan to do some more impressions videos soon, so I hope you enjoyed. Please leave any comments at the end and smash the like. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.